Europa's Blood, a novel by James Daniel Shunk. In our last chapter, U-Jin Song, Moreland, Pitzy, and Lex are desperately tracking the time machine and the briefcase thief from Earth sector toward Jupiter. They are attacked and forced to reroute to Mars. In our next chapter, two subplots begin to unravel. For the state to use the time machine and advance the FTL rocket program, they need the missing time machine key. Next, the briefcase thief needs to infiltrate Europa to deactivate the protective force shield, allowing state-occupying forces to enter so the WAR department can steal the water. Chapter 8. Operation Boomslang. The lightship rendezvoused with the scimitar short of the Jupiterian outer marker. Appleyard was standing on the upper command bridge. He watched the small shuttle laden with the Supreme Leader, the time machine, and the mercenary move across the expanse toward the smaller but fierce-looking scimitar. It resembled a jagged black spearhead. On the one hand, he breathed a sigh of relief to have the Supreme Leader off his ship. Still, on the other hand, he was anxious, wondering how he would complete his part of the mission. He was supposed to find the time machine key. At this point, he guessed he would head back to Earth, hoping that, along the way, the Supreme Leader could feed him some valuable intelligence. Appleyard opened a channel from his captain's chair. "Helm, take her about. We're going back to Earth. I will be in my situation room." "Aye, Skipper. Call the CO to the bridge. He has the con." Appleyard turned and headed through the door to the situation room. He went to the conference table and opened the comp station. He then opened the files that he had received from Supreme Leader Remus. The files were appropriately titled Operation Boomslang. He remembered the boomslang snake was very good at camouflage and concealment. After all, it looked just like a tree branch. The unsuspecting prey would wander up clueless. In addition, snakes had another skill. They could follow the prey into the safety of their burrow. Appleyard reread the material, looking for some hidden clue. A small blinking window opened on his screen, signaling an incoming call from the comm officer. He reached up and touched the screen. Vid feed came from the comm station. "Captain?" the young man said. "Yes?" "Supreme Leader Remus is on the link to thank you for your hospitality." Appleyard cringed. "Put him through." The young, fresh comm officer's face disappeared, replaced by the Supreme Leader's old, tired face. "Stephen," he said with a half-smile. "Thanks for having me." This sort of gentleness from Remus filled Appleyard with dread. Behind that kind gesture was cold-blooded calculation. "The lightship was honored by your presence, sir." He smiled back. He hoped his eyes did not betray him. "I'm so excited to tell you that I already have received breaking news about the missing time machine key." "This is amazing news, sir." "I have received a citizen log and 2 vid events from the Spaceport Control Authority. These files suggest Moreland and his companion have teamed up with known Martian spies. I'm sending the data and the feeds now. You may recognize one of the spies. Control said they left Earth sector shortly after us in a small I-class. Let me know your thoughts." Remus's face disappeared, and data streamed onto the screen. Appleyard read, "State Department Citizen Log, Myrna Rutgers." He skimmed down the hundreds of entries, ignoring the detailed times and entry point cost markers. 2-week Class R-33 visa approval for Mars National Parks, September 3rd. Travel payment, September 5th. USA Province, Batropolis Spaceport, Interplanetary Departure Gate 186C, September 6th. USA Province, Batropolis Spaceport, Interplanetary Arrival Gate 216D, September 8th. Flagged suspicious. GPS tracking not active. Flagged suspicious. Citation issued. Horton's Cafe, September 8th. Transit multipass purchase, September 8th. Tellig Street walking toll, September 8th. Shop Mart Joy, September 8th. Clifton Motel and Park, check-in, September 8th. Electronics X Mall, September 10th. State Research Batropolis, September 11th. Cornell Street walking toll, September 12th. State Archives Center, September 13th. Agar's Falafel Food Cart, September 13th. Arfield Street Public Bathhouse, September 13th. Clifton Motel and Park Checkout, September 14th. City Camping Gear, September 14th. Monorail Access Bay Street eastbound, September 14th. Monorail Exit New England Bluffs Hub, September 14th. USA Province, Batropolis Spaceport, Interplanetary Arrival Gate 316R, September 20th. Customs Office E-Stamp, September 20th. Flagged fraud. Authorities notified. Subject arrested. Monorail entry, New England Bluffs Hub, September 24th. Flagged fraud. Authorities dispatched. Monorail exit, USA Province, Batropolis Spaceport, September 24th. Public Bathroom 345, September 24th. Hangar Door 10-A2846-B, September 24th. Signal lost. Appleyard swiped away the data page and played the attached video. His screen blinked. Now he was looking at a security feed of a door. Along the bottom of the image were the words Hangar Door 10-A2846-B, with the recording time. The first digital event was only 30 seconds long. After several moments of watching the door, Appleyard saw a woman and a man walking up. They looked back at the camera nervously before rushing through the door. Appleyard leaned forward and hit the back button 3 times, reversing the feed. Then he let the image advance for 2 seconds before he hit pause. There they were, 2 figures perfectly framed. Appleyard recognized one of them, the young girl going by the assumed name Myrna Rutgers. He could not remember her real name. Appleyard had heard of the work she was doing in the Outworlds. She probably has a strange surname like Alpha or Beta, he thought with a laugh. He knew the tradition of the original settling families of the Martian refugee colonies taking on such surnames, for reasons of anonymity. Names later to be revered on Mars. He knew they had wished to leave Earth's fascism behind them. Many efforts were taken to hide their family surnames because the state would not easily let all those citizens go. If his memory served him well, she was now part of a terrorist cell called the Peace Initiative. He felt the anger in the pit of his stomach. He let his eyes scan over her companion and did not recognize him. The second feed was a little shorter. It showed 2 oddly dressed boys walking through the same door. What are they doing? These must be the 2 civilian time travelers. One was named Moreland. He wondered if they were really from the past. If he saw them again, he would ask, how did they get involved with the spies? Appleyard was confident Remus would have already run their images through all the security net databases. This meant they were not Earthlings or Martians. However, the state did not have complete Outworld records. Appleyard was unsure how much of the story fed to him by the Supreme Leader was credible. Yet with this, it tended to lend more weight to the account of the civilians being time travelers. The whole thing seemed extraordinary. What had Remus said? They had left Earth sector just after the lightship's departure? This was when his previously ordered action came back to haunt him. Oh my! He rubbed his face. His chest tightened. They had been shadowed by a Martian vessel, the very ship that probably carried the Martian spies and the 2 time travelers, and the time machine key that the Supreme Leader desperately sought. The tactical officer had said the small ship had been following since they had left Earth's moon. Appleyard hoped he was wrong. He decided he would not mention this small oversight to the Supreme Leader. Appleyard was delighted he had only given orders for the Martian vessel to be disabled. He would have to delete the entire episode from his daily log. Appleyard started to think in terms of recovery. He knew the damaged vessel would have to put in a port of call somewhere, most likely Mars. He reached forward and pressed the comm button on his screen. "Helm?" The computer automatically understood the word and connected him. A window opened. The face of a girl appeared. "Yes, Captain?" "I have a course correction. Put in coordinates for Mars. Factor 5. Oh, and Helm, tell communications to get the scimitar back on the comm. Put them through as soon as possible." He wondered how he would explain his course of action. First, he was going to Earth, and now Mars? He stopped this line of thought. He knew that evidence concealment at this level would get him crucified. He slammed his fist down. He would have to tell the Supreme Leader everything. His career might be over, but at least he would still be alive. The scimitar had been orbiting Jupiter near Europa for a short time when the deck captain summoned Frank Kumo to the docking bay. Europa is a miracle in itself. It is small, about the size of Earth's moon, covered by a blanket of snow and fed by perpetual storms. Yet despite the foreboding atmosphere, below the snowy drifts that never melt, even in the summer, is a surface made not of soil and rock, but ice. The frozen plates protect a vast ocean of fresh water, which equates to life's sustenance in the Outworlds. And because of this single extraordinary remote place, life not only exists, but can also flourish. In the region called Aron Chaos, Industrial Complex 1, nicknamed Galileo Station, had been erected on the spot where water had been first discovered. Galileo Station had been named in honor of the small ship that had initially photographed the shifting glaciers from orbit. Within the complex of buildings is a large pumping station with a long descending shaft to draw water. Kumo, dressed in white polar gear with slung scorpion rifle and pack, walked down a wide pedway to a service elevator that overlooked the shuttle bay. A few moments later, he stepped off the elevator into the large, airy docking bay. The XL-435 Space Trooper shuttle was resting near him with several other ships beyond. The XL series was for troop and cargo. He recognized his war mech companion standing next to the loading ramp at the ship's rear. Men dressed in light blue fatigues directed the robot into a packing crate. The container was quickly sealed and moved on board the vessel via a hover lift. Kumo walked up the ramp into the cargo hold. He pulled down a jump seat and sat near his boxed mech. Two men in flight suits came in next. "Lock in tight," the first man said. "The ride gets pretty rough. Don't get sick in my clean cargo bay." Kumo sat stone-faced. The second man chuckled. "Come on, Lieutenant. Let's get this boat airborne. Annieborg Coast Guard ships will be inbound soon. We need to get back before a skirmish." The two men continued toward the cockpit, through the cargo hold, and up the passageway. Kumo was reviewing the mission in his mind. The objective was to get him past the moon's security net and safely on the ground. The SecNet functioned like a moon-encompassing EMP umbrella. And the thing that added to its usefulness was that it was selective in what it disrupted. Ships with active jump drives were candidates for possible action. Vessels with pre-approved electronic signatures could pass through without effect, as their deflective shielding would be aligned to the net's frequency. Without proper clearance and knowledge of the correct net harmonics, a hostile ship would have its electrical systems scrambled, leaving it to fall powerlessly to the below icy surface. The first part of the plan was the moon drop. The shuttle would plunge into Europa's atmosphere at a quick rate. This fast descent was to mask its true identity. Meteors dropped fast, while shuttlecraft descended slower to decrease friction. The ship would flatten its flight path just above the security net, and Kumo would parachute through. Hopefully, the shuttle would be gone before anyone knew what had happened. Once on the ground, the second part of the plan was to disable the security net from its heart within Galileo Station. The end play was to land the state-occupying forces. Soon, the space trooper was moving slowly away from the scimitar toward the pearl-colored moon of Europa. It gleamed brightly ahead. Its backdrop was Jupiter, encircling it like a halo. "Skipper, this is launch control." Drageta was seated in his situation room at his comp station when the call came in. "Go ahead." "You wanted to know when the shuttle was away." "Any sign of Kingdom warships?" "No," the man said. "Nothing yet. But time is short." "Yes, of course." Drageta immediately sent a call to the Supreme Leader's suite. His face came up on his comp screen. "Yes," he said dryly. "Phase 1 has been deployed, and insertion is underway. Our boomslang is en route." The shuttle took 15 minutes of intense throttle before Europa dropped in below. Kumo heard the navigator over the comlink. "Entering Moon's atmosphere. Hold on to something." When the ship smashed into the atmosphere, it shook violently, thunder echoing off the cabin walls. "Another minute," the pilot said with a shaking voice. The shuttle dropped like a rock. Kumo's stomach rose into his throat as his body lifted out of his seat. He quickly pulled the lap restraint tighter. For those moments, he felt weightless. Kumo could feel the sick sensation of falling begin to pass away. He knew they would drop straight down for 9,100 meters and level out at 3,000 meters, the jump point. The ship was only vibrating now. The thundering noise was muffled. "Almost," the pilot said over the comlink. "Marine, get ready for exit." Kumo unhooked his restraining belts. He wearily climbed from his seat. "There is a notum concerning a storm front," the navigator warned. Kumo wondered how this would affect his jump. A red cabin light began to blink. As soon as the light flashed green, he would exit the ship. He pulled on his parachute assembly, locking the gear into place. He pulled on his helmet and snapped the oxygen mask over his mouth. His visor was then closed with a hiss, sealing the face in a safe, sealed environment. He would be doing a high-altitude, low-opening jump. He would drop in a tucked position to 300 meters below the security grid umbrella and pop the chute, floating safely to the surface. At least, that was the plan. 5 seconds, the pilot said over the interlink. "Get ready for deployment." Kumo pressed a button on a wall control panel, and the rear cargo bay door started to drop, revealing night's blackness. Air rushed into the cabin, and he struggled to stay standing. His eyes stayed trained on the jump light. Kumo hated jumping in the dark. He had trained for it, but felt anxious standing at the jump point. If his auto-release for the main canopy malfunctioned or his altimeter was affected by the cold, he could hit the ground and never see it coming. A night jump decision was purely tactical to ensure a successful covert insertion to the highest percentage. The light turned green, and Kumo ran down the cargo ramp and dove off. His cargo crate followed, triggered by the co-pilot. The shuttle turned, ascended into the darkness, and was gone. The severe weather assaulted Kumo's body. He tucked in with his knees bent, thighs drawn close to his chest, and hands clasped around his shins. They called this the cannonball. The feeling of falling in the pitch black brought primal fear. He continually pictured himself slamming into the ground at terminal velocity. "Trust your equipment," he told himself. To draw his thoughts away from this concern, he carefully watched the glowing face of his jump altimeter. He dropped for almost 50 seconds. He estimated his speed at 190 kilometers per hour in this tucked position, or 54 meters per second. His automatic chute release, sewn to the parachute container's top flap, beeped and flashed, freeing the main canopy. He did not feel the opening force. When he looked, his biggest fear was realized. He could barely see it in the dark, but it was unmistakable. The chute was partially inverted, flapping back and forth. One of the cords must have tied, or the chute had ripped. He knew he had only a few short moments left to live. He guessed his secondary chute would not save him for this low-altitude release. Will impact hurt? 1 second later, his emergency chute let loose. As Kumo thought, it had not been appropriately calibrated. Just moments before he landed, the chute caught a breath of fresh air, and his body jerked from the opening force. He landed abruptly. The deep snow did not offer much cushion. Kumo had the wind knocked out of him. Nothing felt broken, but it took him several minutes to sit up. He chuckled, filled with happiness over the gift of life. In the end, his laugh sounded more like a cough. "That's what you call an opening point," he thought. Slowly, his will returned, and he rose out of the snow and climbed to his feet. He pulled off his jump helmet and quickly unhooked his chute assembly, burying everything in the snow. There would be no sign he had ever been there. Quickly, he pulled a hood and snow goggles from his pack. He covered his head and adjusted the goggles over his already watering eyes. Heavy snow was falling from the sky, and gusts of wind were swirling it. Kumo looked down at the face of his wristwatch. It was a HUD and locating device. He got a reading on his supply crate 1 kilometer away. 1 kilometer off target. He had hoped it would be small enough not to attract attention when it passed through the security net. The Meek was sleeping, so it should not get picked up by the moon's defense sensors. Without power, if noticed, it should show as a meteor. There had been a concern with sending a machine with Kumo. In the end, it was believed that the machine offered a backup. It may not succumb to the same threats that Kumo would face with the weather. The mech also was handy in a battle. After running all the scenario algorithms, it was decided that the mech increased Kumo's chances of success without undue risk. Now Kumo would make his way to the crate, and as long as he kept moving, he would not freeze to death. His first test would be at that crate. If Anaborg snow crawlers surrounded it, his mission would be in jeopardy. He hooked snowshoes to his boots and made his way through the deep snow. As he approached the coordinates of the crate, he carefully scanned the snowy field for headlights. He did not see any crawlers. 10 minutes later, he was at the lonely container. It was half buried with its 2 nylon canopies flapping helplessly. He quickly buried the chutes and pressed buttons on the crate's manifest screen. A door opened, dropping down into a ramp. He ran the necessary commands from his watch to wake up the machine. Out of the crate's darkness, the war mech flinched, came alive, and finally stomped forward into the blizzard. Shoulder-mounted light blazed on. Kumo looked back down at his locator, scanning for Galileo Station. He had a problem. Nothing so far. The HUD showed the temperature to be -50. He had to be careful because even in his special thermal gear, he would not survive if exposed to the elements for too long. However, he was still working within the safe zone of his equipment. He even had a little time to spare. He hoped his scanner was working correctly. He wiped snow from the crystal face and then shook it. Finally, he got a faint reading. He was way out of the proper landing zone, which put him behind schedule. He would have to hurry.